Hey food fans, welcome to Cooking Like a Pro with Chef Cal and me, Mrs. Chef, his wife Christa DeMercurio. We're dishing out culinary intuition, insights, and imagination to spice up your meals and make cooking more fun. Today's episode was broadcast and recorded live on AM/FM radio.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Cooking Like a Pro. This is Chef Cal and my wife, Christa.
Hello, good evening.
Yep, you found us at KCNR, 1460 AM and 96.5 FM. We always appreciate you listening because we know it's a food thing, so we just enjoy talking about food. And as we normally do, we start the section off or show off with talking about fruits and vegetables, something stuff that's good for you. One of the things we haven't talked about yet is what the French call crudité, and what in America we just call vegetable tray. I guess it kind of rhyme.
Just a veggie plate.
Veggie plate.
Like those things you get at Costco that's got the multiple veggies with the dip in the middle of it?
Yeah, with, the celery and the carrots and all that. And, it's just a great way to get your vegetables in. I know that a lot of people may not have a wide variety of ways of preparing them or cooking them, rather than, this way they can just have them sitting there.
Now, should a crudité be blanched at times, or should it always just be raw vegetables?
Well, crudité itself means raw.
Okay.
It actually means raw things. So, I think that could, you can kind of do whatever you want. I think if you start adding stuff to it, it might eventually get, if you're doing meats and cheese or something, and bread, then you're leaning towards the charcuterie. But crudité is just raw vegetables and some kind of a dip, kind of the traditional dip is kind of like a ranch thing. But we used to have a crudité that people could. Well, the great thing about it is it's great for sharing. It's easy to do. It's great for sharing. It's not going to go bad. And but you do need to peel your celery. Well, that's one of those things people just miss. You got to peel your celery, and it's easy enough to do. It's you just the back of the celery, the rib itself has
strings
on the outside. Yeah, it has strings. You can floss, I guess.
It's really stringy, really tough stuff.
Yeah, so you need to pull that out, and you need to pull it out if you're using it for something else too, because that stringiness, those strings, that fiber is only going to get in whatever it is you cook. If it ends up coming off or getting torn off, I don't know that it necessarily would, but. Well,
I'm talking about celery. You want a younger celery, right? Because older, woodier celery just becomes bitter and not palatable.
Yeah, it becomes bitter, and it also becomes bitter when you cook it too long. Celery is one of those things that even when we're making, stocks and soups, for example, a carrot. Let's say you're doing a vegetable soup, and you've got carrots and onion and celery going in there. Well, the carrots are by far the most dense. It's going to take the longest. So maybe you start off with some carrots and some garlic and a little bit of oil, and you cook that up, and then you add maybe some chicken pieces and get that cooking. And then go ahead and add your onions, and then you can wait, to add your celery, because again, celery might take, 4 or 5 minutes, where, diced up carrots, depending on the size, could take anywhere between 8 to 10 to more. But one thing about when you're cutting your vegetables, and I know where we got off on soup here, but it is important that everything's cut the same size.
I was just going to ask you about that, because you get those big old pieces where they'll take a whole piece, because celery is tapered at the top, it's wider at the bottom, and I know some of the vegetable trays, they'll have just a big old hunk of celery, the full curve. It's not even cut down, and it's very hard to eat. Well,
hard to eat, and it's going to get more bitter. As far as cutting in the right similar sizing, extremely important, because when I take a bite of soup, if I'm eating clam chowder, for example, I don't want to take a bite of soup and the only thing on my spoon is a potato, because, the potatoes maybe an inch by an inch and a half or something. So you think about cutting things the right size, but crudité is really just going to be finger size, I mean, if you were to look at your pointer finger, your index finger, I suppose, just something like that, like a stick, like a matchstick, something you can pick up. But then again, it's healthy. And we used to do ours with that raspberry dressing, a great raspberry. It was a salad dressing that we do with beef, blue cheese, and pine nut salad. That was a good one. But, just anything to dip it in, something little. I mean, yogurt is a great accompaniment. You can get so many different flavored yogurts, and then you can also use yogurt as a base.
And hummus. Hummus is a good dip.
Hummus is something that's good to dip it in. So, all these things are falling into the the healthier category. So it's basically just a different way of eating vegetables, because some people are like, well, how do I cook them? Well, we cook them all the same. We steam them, or we saute them, or we microwave them. But there are a wide variety of ways of cooking vegetables too. I know that in the wintertime, carrots will generally get a little more bitter from being in the ground longer. And I used to just saute mine, and then when we talk about deglazing, adding the liquid to it, we would do ours and end up like hitting them with a little bit of 7-Up. So it's a little 7-Up in with your carrots, and it adds a little sweetness back to it.
Now I'm curious, so a vegetable plate usually has carrots, celery, a lot of times broccoli, sometimes cauliflower. Are there some other vegetables? I mean, when I was growing up, we used to do a lot of Jerusalem artichokes.
Yeah. Just about anything. Like you said, Jerusalem artichokes, which reminds me of things like turnip or rutabaga. There's any variety of things that you can put on there. And you mentioned earlier, or you asked about just whether they should be blanched or not. And that kind of just depends on the person. I mean, some things like broccoli, cauliflower, cauliflower maybe not so much, but even if you blanched it for 60 seconds, it's still going to be crunchy. It's still going to have all the vitamins and minerals in it. We're not trying to, squeeze all the flavor out of it. But, broccoli can be a little more trying, to chew through.
Okay, now I have another beef.
Another beef. We're talking about vegetables.
I know. Okay. Cherry tomatoes. Those cherry tomatoes, they'll give you the big old one that you pop in your mouth and you bite on it, and because it's not cut, it goes squirt everywhere.
Those are great. Well, that's something that always used to bother me in restaurants. So I made sure if we were ever using cherry tomatoes as
on a salad,
as a salad, we would cut them in half, because hitting the person across this table from you is not the goal of eating a cherry tomato. But I picked some of those sunbursts today. I was outside and I was hungry, so I grabbed a couple of those.
My tomatoes are finally ripening.
They are getting close.
It's September.
The ones the deer haven't got are ripening. It's still deer season, so we live outside the city limits. We might need to give Dad a call, but
besides tomatoes, are they called goji? No, not goji berries. Those little pineapple husk tomatoes. What are those?
Well, there's a variety of names for them. Some of them call them stone fruit. I always called them pineapple husk tomatoes, because for one, they have that husk on them, kind of like a Chinese lantern. Another name they're known by is gooseberry.
Gooseberries, that's it.
But the pineapple husk tomatoes, or gooseberries, or it's ground cherries.
Ground cherries, yeah.
The thing about them is that it just tastes like pineapple. They're so delicious if you can get them. If you see them, in the store, a little basket of them.
Trader Joe's almost always has them.
Okay. I'm wondering if we had to hit up Trader Joe's on some kind of a, commercial contracts as much as you bring them up. But, well, you shop there more than I do. I go there for my pork belly, but that's generally, not my pork belly. I go there to buy pork belly.
Well, they have some unique things that you can't get in other stores, and that's why I like to go there, to see what's new and what we can try from other cultures.
And they have less things that are wrapped in plastic, right? We've been talking about that lately, things that are wrapped in plastic. So, but we're going to go ahead and take our quick first break here. Again, Cooking Like a Pro. You're with Chef Cal and Mrs. Chef Christa, and you have found us on KCNR 1460 AM and 96.5 FM.
I like it smoked and I like it fried. I like it with eggs on the side. My love for bacon will never die. I want bacon, bacon, bacon. It's great for breakfast.
Bacon, bacon, bacon. You have found us here on KCNR, 1460 AM, 96.5 FM. And bacon, you know, actually I was reading something that our son wrote the other day. He's 15 now, but I was looking at something that he had written back in his
grade school days.
Yeah, grade school days, and he said it was something to do with God creating bacon. You know, I mean, and he's a bacon kid. The kid
loves bacon.
Yeah, but he loves bacon, and you know, especially his Grammy bacon, because when he goes to Grammy's house, Grammy gives him the big thick bacon. Yeah.
Good bacon.
There's a difference. Yeah. And I know that, you know, I worked for a couple years at Black Bear Diner as their corporate chef, and bacon was a big thing. Bacon's one of those things that it's pieces per pound. So there's 16 ounces in a pound. So if you get a pound of bacon, then it should be 1 ounce per piece. If it's a 16 count, 16 ounces in a pound. One of the things that I've seen where the bacon industry really trying to kind of trip us up here is that, remember, when you would buy bacon and you would get a 1 pound of bacon, when you go to the store, grab me a pound of bacon. Well, when you grab that box, that you are just assuming more often than not that it's a pound of bacon. It's not. Look at it, because quite often, and it will say 12 ounces. So it's only 3/4 of a pound. So they're saying that, this pack of bacon's only costing you X. Maybe it's costing you, $8 or something, but you're not getting a full pound of bacon.
The packages are getting smaller, the prices are going up.
Yeah, I mean, there's less Doritos in a bag. I mean, less Cheerios in a box. I don't know. It's
half full or is it half empty? Well, it's half full of air.
Well, it's these marketing people, I think we have to blame it on the marketing people that are out there trying to say, okay, well, how are we going to save money on this? But yes, check your bacon and make sure that you are getting a pound. I would recommend going to a place where they sell bacon by the pound. A lot of places do. It's generally at what we call a 10 to 12. So it's 10 to 12 count. So it's a little over an ounce per piece, and 50% of it's fat. It's going to cook off. It's going to shrink. I like bacon that you can chew. I don't know.
I don't even bother buying uncooked bacon anymore. I get the Kirkland.
Yeah. Well, you're again back to Costco.
Yes.
Back to Costco.
Yes. Costco's my friend. Yeah. Trader Joe's is my friend.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we started talking about bacon because wanted to talk about. I don't know, we'll figure out a way to make this connection here, but enjoying flavors more and looking for a balance of flavor. And I thought one of the easier ways to kind of describe my thoughts on this were a BLT. If you eat bacon, you're undoubtedly had, a BLT, a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. But when you take a bite of that bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, are you tasting just the bacon? Or are you tasting the tomato? And are you tasting the lettuce? Are you tasting the bread? So basically what we're looking at is when we prepare a meal, we want the flavors to be balanced enough where we taste all of them, because if you don't, then what's the reason for that ingredient even being in there? If I eat something and I can't taste the mushrooms, then why are the mushrooms in there? So you kind of have to look at that balance, like, do you need to go a little more of this, a little less of this? But on a BLT especially, it's pretty easy to really just taste the bacon.
Unless you've got a really nice homegrown tomato. That makes a huge difference.
Well, that leads me to the next thing. Nice segue. And I remember when the tomato season first came out, and Mom and Dad had their garden out back this year. It wasn't that long ago, maybe a month or so ago. And they had this tomato, and they were letting it grow. And they're picking things around it, but not this one tomato. And I said, what are you doing with that one tomato? And Dad goes, that's my BLT tomato. Oh. That's my BLT tomato for me and Mom for their sandwich. So they literally just
grew waiting. One tomato for us.
They were waiting on it. Well, they had a lot of different tomatoes, but this one particular nice large tomato, and I know that we got I don't know if it was a mortgage lifter or something the other day.
A couple of beefsteaks growing out there.
A couple of beefsteaks, and it was, you get the slice. In fact, I think I picked up a heirloom, but you put a slice, maybe like a quarter, a little over a quarter, maybe 3/8 of an inch thick. Slice of tomato on there, a little salt and pepper, a little bit of bacon, knocked over, and then a nice crisp lettuce. You got a great BLT. And moving on to something else that we just did was dinner last night, and that was stroganoff. Something that you don't see it on a restaurant menu. You just don't.
It seems like it's a pastime type of food. People don't eat it anymore.
Yeah, it's just brunch is kind of a dead thing, right? I mean, I remember brunch being so fun. I remember back in the late 70s, me and my friend Howard, man, we would set brunch line up at the Red Line, and we would have all kinds of heights and tables and rocks and bushes, and I always did the ice carvings, and then we just set up the chafing dishes, and we would have, you'd have all the eggs Benedict and the beef stroganoff and the seafood Newburgh, and you had all those, but they're just, I don't even know there's a place that really does a plate down brunch.
The place up by the Shasta Lake, I think, is still doing it.
Oh, the old, I don't know if they still call that Tail of the Whale. I worked there in
Bridge Bay. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called now.
I was working there with my second son. My second son, Joshua, was born while I worked there. So CJ was just a year old. So that was back in the mid-'80s. That'll give you an idea of how old I am. But Stroganoff, actually, doing a little research on that, it came from a Russian gentleman, Count Stroganoff, spelled Strognov, Stroganoff. He was from a Russian family, and this is attributed to his chef. This is back in the 1800s, and it's said that the Count had no teeth, so he needed something soft. So you cook Stroganoff all the way to the point where it kind of falls apart, which of course you can. I mean, it's like shredded beef. Then personally, I think. I like a little chew. I don't mind. I mean, I don't mind biting something and chewing something. That's kind of like pasta being al dente versus overcooked.
The one you made the other night. So we had a ribeye. Is that what you brought home? A ribeye on I think Monday. Yeah. And then leftover, you cubed that up, and then you added it to the brown sauce, and it was the most tender ribeye I've ever had in my life. Yeah,
tender and delicious, but not shredded.
No, it was not shredded.
If you're going to shred something, you might as well just get the least expensive meat you can. Because that's kind of what it's there for. It's a working muscle, so it's a part of the animal that's, does some moving around, maybe in the shoulder where you get your chuck, or towards the butt end, or you get your sirloin and your round, where the meat forms. The muscle fibers are held together by connective tissue. So once you get more connective tissue involved, because it's more of a working muscle, then you have something where the cooking process needs to break it down. So then you're stewing it. Then you're throwing it in the crock pot. Then you're simmering it on the back of the stove and just letting it do its thing. But I wasn't going to cook the ribeye that was left over. All you had to do is kind of throw it in there and bring it up to temp. But a lot of mushrooms.
So a stroganoff, it comes from a brown sauce.
It's a sour cream sauce. So it's a brown sauce with sour cream.
And mushrooms. And
mushrooms are something that we've always done here. That's how I was taught to do back in the 70s. And that's traditional. But, you can certainly obviously do it without. You could add other things as well. Again, that's the wonderful thing about food, is that it's just fun and exciting and to do things with it. But you add the sour cream, and sometimes you're actually better off putting a dollop being let's just say a scoop. If you don't know what a dollop is, it's just a scoop, a little plop of sour cream on top. So you got your noodles or your pasta, you got your beef stroganoff with your brown sauce, with your mushrooms if you're going to have, and then you have to throw the sour cream on top. But traditionally, what they did was they mixed the sour cream in with the beef, and the way you do that, you just have to do it a little bit at a time. And you have to whisk it continuously until it's completely whipped in, because you're adding dairy to, a simmering sauce, which if it's simmering, then it's, a little bit over 200 degrees, and then you're going to have a problem with it.
Now, I actually grew up, we didn't make true stroganoff. There was, those Lipton sauce packets. It's the sauce with the noodles in it, and you add so there was a stroganoff version of it. I don't think they're called Lipton anymore, but you would have the meat and the sour cream, but then we put in a little bit of canned tomatoes with it, adding the acid to it. So it was a knockoff stroganoff, and I loved that. That's what I grew up with.
But you can add anything to it. And again, it's just the thing with the whipped cream is, not the whipped cream, the sour cream is you don't want to curdle because it's dairy. So if you add it too early, then there's a chance of it curdling. But again, a little bit of time, whisk it in, a little bit of time, whisk it in. Most of the time when you're adding ingredients, especially if you're making emulsions, where you're, have egg yolks going, where you're adding oil to it, you really want to go just a little bit at a time.
It incorporates.
Let it get incorporated and mixed before you just add, half the volume in whatever you're making. If you're making, meringue, and all of a sudden, you're throwing a pound of granulated sugar. Well, maybe the whites can't handle that. Or if you're making a hollandaise, maybe it can't handle, an entire cup of butter at the same time. Or if you're doing dairy, same thing with with using dairy with soups. You got to be a little bit careful if you're making maybe like a cream of butternut squash. I know that there's a butternut squash and ginger soup that I really enjoy. It's a good soup too.
Now, as far as the garnish back on the stroganoff, you put some green onion tops on them. Would you? Is it traditional to have an herb like a parsley or a green onion or something on top?
Yeah, I think traditionally, from the French standpoint, is parsley. They use a lot of parsley on everything. You don't see parsley on anything now. Really, I don't. I just, you might once in a while see some chopped up and put on something.
Well, most of the herb blends from France had parsley in them in some way, herb beans.
Parsley is a huge ingredient, and so is its flavor. And originally, it was just used as a, something that you would eat your meal, and then you take your parsley sprig and you eat it and use
breath
it
freshener.
Literally, just to something to freshen your breath up, so you didn't walk around smelling like, salmon for the rest of the day.
Garlic and onions.
There you go. So, but stroganoff, there you go. It's a great dish, very traditional, good stewy dish. I know as we're going to, some point here, the weather's going to get cooler and you're going to be looking for those things. So, get some good, helpful information there. And, it's Chef Cal. We're going to take a quick break. Cooking Like a Pro. You have found us. KCNR, 1460 AM. Welcome back. Again, here is Chef Cal and my beautiful wife, Miss Chef Christa, and we are talking about food. You have found us on Cooking Like a Pro. So thanks for joining us. I wanted to say thank you to David, who texted me and said that, so it's not called Tail of the Whale out at Bridge Bay, which it was when I was there back in the 80s. And that was in the 19th century, hon. Yeah. And, but it's called Huffs, Huffs.
Oh, that's right. It's actually named after somebody that.
Yeah, there's a story there. So go on up and get the story. I know they did brunch because we went there for brunch, a number of months ago.
For your son's birthday.
But it's such a beautiful, beautiful view. Right there on the lake.
Especially when the lake is full.
Well, I think we're doing okay. It always kind of refills itself. But one of the things I wanted to chat about in this segment here was a restaurant that I really enjoyed. I believe it was one of my favorite restaurants that we opened up. And it was called Pesce e Pasta. Pesce, Italian for fish. The letter E means and then of course pasta. So it was fish and pasta. So it was kind of nice because just to be able to have that variance of being able to mix these things together, where you take a seafood item and a pasta item, and you can really come up with a dish that's much more cost effective. If you're making seafood fettuccine, and you got the pasta, or maybe a seafood risotto we talked about last week a little bit. It's a great combination.
Well, it's traditional in Italy and the Mediterranean to have fish because they're right on the water, and you can have those flavors.
That's what the Italians do, and but we had a lot of stuff on the pesce pasta menu that I really enjoyed. Deep fried lasagna, Very weird. I wouldn't do that ever again. I mean, not weird so much. It was just like a 3-day process to make it and cut it, make it, bake it, cut it, freeze it, bread it, fry it, roast it. I mean, it was a great dish.
I hope you charged a lot of money for it. It sounds like it was a lot of work.
It was a lot of fun. So we had we couldn't find a menu. And you think, I've opened about a dozen restaurants, only 4 that we've owned. But for some reason, the menu just never got, I don't know if that was back before computers. That was when we still had DeMercurio's, our flagship restaurant that we started off with back in.
And this was before my time. I never got to go there. Yeah, I never went to that restaurant.
And a lot of people say that was their favorite restaurant that we did. And
but Mom called, and what did she find?
Yeah, Mom found the menu. Yep. Thanks, Mother. Mo, good job. We found the menu for me. So I was looking through there because I want to, add these things to the cookbook we're working on. And a couple of things that kind of stuck out to me was the crab manicotti. And a lot of people that have manicotti and they confuse between the difference between manicotti and cannelloni. A cannelloni is rolled up in a crepe. Generally a cannelloni, like if you had seafood crepes, it would be rolled up in a crepe, which of course is a super light, wrapper. It's just made out of milk and water, milk, water, flour, I guess, or egg.
Egg.
And then it's just like a really super thin pancake. Crepe is French for a pancake. And then you just roll it up in there. But if it's pasta, then it's a manicotti, and manicotti, there's no end to it. You can pretty much stuff it with anything that will fit in it.
Okay, so at the beginning of the week you made meatloaf. And
Yes.
then the next meal you took that meatloaf and you ground it up and you put it into a tomato sauce and made it into a bolognese.
Bolognese,
And now we're going to take that bolognese and we're going to make a third meal out of it, and you are going to stuff the manicotti with...
Yeah, we're just going to add some spinach and some ricotta cheese, which would be traditional, and stuff that inside. Now you want to... Well, if you're going to bake it for an hour, then you don't even have to blanch the pasta.
That was my question. Do
Yeah,
you fill it? Because, how do you blanch something, that big round tube, and have it being floppy around? How do you fill it?
Yeah, generous for me is just use grime. Everything is chopped up enough where you can pipe it to a pastry bag. So you just get a tube on it and pipe it to a pastry bag.
But you don't have to boil it if you're baking it?
Not if you're going to bake it for an hour. There's enough moisture in the dish. It's kind of like lasagna. A lot of times people will cook their lasagna noodles ahead of time.
But you don't have to.
No, you don't have to, because they're going to be cooking in this liquid, and they're going to be cooking in there for an hour. Pasta only takes 12 minutes to cook. So
whatever moisture is in your sauce is enough moisture to cook the pasta from a dry state.
Yes, it is. And I didn't actually learn that until fairly well along in my career. I don't know, it's a couple of decades ago that I was someplace and I see him do that. I'm like, that's not going to get cooked. Well, it did. It cooked and it came out nice. So
did you cook that in like a 350, 400 degree oven?
Yeah, most things are going to be the average temperature is 350 degrees for just about anything. If you want to brown something or sear it, maybe it's a little higher. If you want to cook something like allow it to stew, then maybe you go down to 3 1/4.
So when you take the spinach, so you had me pick up frozen spinach today.
Yes.
And are you going to drain that, defrost it? What's the technique for taking that meatloaf that you turn into a sauce, adding the spinach and the ricotta? How are you going to do that?
Well, you're going to find out when I get home.
Well, but they're not going to be here to watch you do it tomorrow.
So you want to tell people? Okay, so yes, we drain spinach. Chopped spinach is one of the few vegetables that I think you can work pretty well out of a freezer because it's a block and it's solid. But allow it to thaw overnight, let it drain, and then go ahead and mix it in with the ricotta. And I'm going to use a little bit of that sauce to flavor it as well, and with that kind of a thick meatloaf tomato sauce, and put a little sauce on top, a little mozzarella. I like mozzarella, Parmesan for flavor, things like Parmesan Romano, Asiago, I guess. Those are great cheeses. But a lot of times what I look for is the melt. And a lot of times actually they call it the pull. In pizza competitions they call it, the pull. Like when you pull that pizza and you see how long that cheese strings out, and then that's It's important. Like your cheese, but manicotti, man meaning hand, cotti meaning coat. So it's coated. It's like a hand coated. Originated, of course, in Italy. On this one, a lot of pasta came originally from China, but this one came from Italy, and just basically like a tube. And the one we had at pesce pasta, we actually stuffed with crab also. It was a crab, spinach, sauteed mushroom, and mixture mixed with the ricotta, and then it got a nice. I think you could get it with either a pesto sauce or a tomato sauce. But yeah, it's a great, easy dish. It's not. I mean, again, one of the things that we need to consider when we're cooking these days is as costs go up on things, we are, we have less money to work with. You don't want. You want to utilize your leftovers. If you can't, if you got 2 slices of meatloaf left and you don't have anything to do with it, then, you don't want to make a meatloaf sandwich or something out of it, then wrap it, freeze it, throw it in the freezer, always label it, and then pull it out down the road and do something else with it. But we're not in a position where, financially we can prepare more, have food going to waste. I mean, in a restaurant, it's a killer. It's one, food going to waste in a restaurant is not a good thing.
Well, and in French cooking, it's all about total utilization of the product.
Yeah. Well, total utilization of it, and again, just making sure nothing goes to waste. And even if you want to do something simple, like you've got your pasta and you've got some leftover pasta, just cool it down, and then just, a little bit of olive oil when you want to heat it up, a little bit of garlic, that garlic just start to turn, throw in your pasta. It's actually called aglio di olio. Aglio is just Italian for garlic, and olio is Italian for oil. So it's aglio with the E and oil, garlic and oil. And I know that one of the ways that I did this at pesce pasta was with a Mizithra cheese. There's a chain, I don't know if they're still around. I think they are. They were called Spaghetti Factory, and they had this dish. It was just like aglio di olio, but they added this Mizithra cheese. And Mizithra it's a sheep cheese. It's hard. It's got a salty component to it. It's almost kind of, I don't know, chalk-like. But it's so delicious.
Dry and nutty kind of flavor.
Yep. It's going to get you some nuttiness as well. Mizithra, it's MYZRITHIA, Mizithra. But yeah, it's
don't spell that in a spelling competition.
Yeah, I don't think so. And really, when you start that off, you really want to use a brown butter for something like that. So it's where you put your butter in your pan and allow it to melt, and then you reduce the heat and allow it to start to brown, and you'll get a really nice nutty flavor and even nutty aroma out of it.
So Mizithra is not really a melting cheese; it's more of a garnish type cheese.
Definitely not a melting cheese. No, it would be an ingredient. It'd be just one more component that would go in there. So it'd be a flavoring ingredient. It is something you put on top to allow it to melt. But it was just a great dish. It was simple. Brown butter, which gives a very distinctive flavor. And then you throw in your pasta, which has been pre-blanched, and and your garlic, and it's just something simple. And being Italian, pasta just they might say pasta's no good for you. I don't know, with the flour and all. I mean, I think that the flour these days, of course, for the most part, has zero nutritional value, and it's probably not even good for you with the things that they add into it. But get yourself a good flour. Get yourself a good flour from Italy. I know we use the Caputo when I make my pizza. I use the Caputo.
And the double O.
Yeah. I mean, you get yourself a flour that has not been processed to death, right? Not something that's just been, mistreated, and the whole idea was just to get longevity on the product, so they add in preservatives and byproducts and stuff. So start off with some good flour. Go out to Moore's Flour Mill. Yeah, out there on Airport Road. We'll be talking more about that down the road here, but Cooking Like a Pro, we'll be right back in a moment with our last segment. Thank you for listening. We'll be right back.
'cause I'm crying for you, dear. You are on my lonely mind.
Here we are, almost done with another show, almost another show in the can. And, I wanted to bring something up quickly. I did an event last week. It was just a fundraising event. Well, actually, it wasn't so much a fundraising event. It was more of an event to help with Operation Christmas Child. And if you're unfamiliar with it, there was a variety of churches that were there. And what they do is they fill these shoe boxes full of toys, and they go, hundreds of thousands. They go all around the world. This is something that's done, across the United States in a variety of places where they want to make sure that every kid on Christmas, regardless of whether you're in the Sudan or you're in Vietnam or wherever you happen to be, that they're going to get a Christmas present.
And we even include things like toothpaste, socks.
Yep. So many things, essentials, and again, just, a gift. Think about it. You're in a place where certainly there's no snow on the ground, but one of the things we did there, though, and I wanted to put a shout out to Christina, who just our engineer here, and she made some wonderful chocolate dipped strawberries. Those are great. Those are great. Yeah. So just,
I appreciate your advertising and actually ordering them. It was a blessing to make them. And
so, if you're looking for strawberries, you can reach out to the station, or you can reach out to us. We'll make sure to get you in contact. But she made a little shoebox out of chocolate and had it on each strawberry. And then the strawberry was dipped in chocolate and had some green drizzle and some white gold fleck on it, and some gold. What was the gold on it was on there?
It was just a powder, gold powder. I
powder.
like when it has like this gold biscuits. It makes it like more tasty, richer. And
it was beautiful. It was beautiful and lovely and tasty.
Boxes.
And tasty. Those boxes, the boxes look great. People, especially with the event being with the box. So thank you to Christina for helping us be able to put that on. And we started with a tier in my beer, and the reason was my wife just said, I want to talk about beer, which is strange.
Because I don't drink beer.
She doesn't drink beer, yeah. But, beer is used a lot. It is used a lot in food. Something that I remember back, very, very fond of that in my earlier days, where we used to beer batter. Generally, just something like a beer batter, you're going to want that flavor, so you might use a particular highly flavored beer. A beer that has a lot of maybe hops in it, or something that's going to come across. Because when you eat this nice golden brown deep fried cod or whatever the firm fish is that you're doing, you want a fish that's firm that can hold up to the temperature. Because remember, you always want to deep fry at 375. Do not deep fry at any other temperature. 375. Get yourself a candy thermometer, put it on the edge of your deep fryer, your pot, and then just bring it up slowly and get it up to around 375 and just cook a little bit. But, I have, texture. I think it's a textural component. I like fish. I like the crispness of the batter. But, fish and chips. I pretty much judge, if I go into a pub type of an atmosphere, I almost always get fish and chips. And I judge the place by their batter. And a beer batter is it's a simple batter. A little bit of butter in there as well with the beer and the flour and some eggs. And
I've used beer to make bread as the liquid component.
Beer bread. Beer fondue is another one. You can melt some cheese down, use some beer to kind of give it a little. So if let's say you were doing like soft pretzels, like the big giant plate, and you needed to dip it into something, and you're watching the game, and we're not the 49er game, at least not the one from last week, but then you have something to dip it into. So a nice soft pretzel baked off to dip into a beer fondue. And another thing is, I always add beer to my barbecue sauce. Always. Now, on something like that, I use a cheap beer, inexpensive beer, because it's just, I just want that beer flavor, right? And it's not going to really come through in the barbecue sauce with all that sugar that's in there. So I always kind of thin it out. Barbecue sauces are so thick that they're just going to kind of stick on there, and next thing you know, your grill's a mess. So,
what's different? It's interesting. Okay, so we talk about wine, and we've got white wine, and we've got red wine, and there's a gamut of low acidity and high acidity, and there's so many different things, but also in beer, there's light beers and there's dark beers, and whereas I like white wine, if I'm going to do a beer, I want a dark one like a porter or a stout. I don't like the lighter beers.
Mm-hmm. And someplace to go is go down and see our friends
Charlou's.
Charlou and Kathy down at Charlou's down in the Anderson
Tap wall
factory outlet. Yeah, because they got the tap wall, and you can just try 1 ounce. You can just try a little bit to see before you get yourself a whole glass, and that's fun because you're trying more things. It's always fun.
Well, that's actually how I started drinking beer, because I tasted each one and went, oh, I don't like that. Oh, okay, so I'm finding out I like the darker beers.
Yeah. And they've got ales on there, which is kind of nice. And I know they've got that. I don't know what that chocolate brownie something. I can't remember.
That's the one I like.
Was it chocolate brownie beer?
It's a port. I think it's stout.
A stout.
It might be a porter. I can't remember which one it is.
Something you can sip on. But
can you cook with a dark beer? We used to put a lot of what's the orange one? The moon one.
Oh, the Belgium.
Yeah, the Belgian. Yeah, so you use that one in a lot of cooking. Can you use a dark beer in cooking?
Yeah. Matter of fact, one of my favorite muffins is a Guinness Stout muffin. Oh. Now, Guinness Stout is going to be bitter, so you're going to have to make sure to balance the sugar, but it makes a great muffin. And again, it just depends on the flavor you want to get. I know that I make a beer cheddar soup, which is a really nice soup. You don't want, just like everything else, and in the second segment this evening we talked about BLT because of the balance of flavor. Same thing. If I have a sharp cheddar and beer soup, I want to be able to. I don't want the beer to overpower the cheddar, or vice versa. So the balance of ingredients, the balance of the flavor, taste it. Always have your tasting spoons, those ready to go. But beer is something that we cook a lot with.
Okay, now something else I remember when you used to do the fish and chips, you would come out and get off tap the beer fresh to make your beer batter with. You would not let your beer sit there for an hour on the counter. You would come out and do it fresh right before you were going to dip it and throw it in the fryer. Yeah,
just the more carbonation that's in there, the lighter the batter's going to be. And again, it doesn't really matter what you're deep frying, shrimp or cod or anything else, chicken nuggets. Those kind of things. Well, you get into that, actually, normally that would be something that we would say is breaded, not so much.
So is there any use for a flat beer?
A flat beer? Yeah. I mean, a flat beer you could use certainly in your soup. It'd be great in soup, because if I'm making, 5 gallons of beer cheddar soup, I'm going to need a gallon of beer. So that would work too. But remember, beer is not meant to lay down. Lay down meaning, give it a break, let it just kind of hang out and get better. It's not going to get better. Beer is made, beer is cooking. You do cook beer. That's the process of making beer, includes cooking it, with the ingredients, and that's just, something that you're making, you cool it down, but it's made for quick consumption. When you look at wines, most wines are made for fairly quick consumption. They're made ready, to enjoy. Again, some things aren't, you can get, of course, certain, red wines. Generally, it's a red wine that can lay down, and it's something that's a little bit heavier or something where the grape's a little more complex, like maybe a Syrah, Cabernet, of course, Zinfandel, especially from Paso Robles. You can get a Turley, yeah, just it'll bring a tear to your eye. So get yourself a Turley. I mean, you'll get a little tear in your eye, or a Williams Salem.
I have a little of a weird question. Okay, if you're cooking with beer, are you going to serve wine at your meal? I mean, do the two play nice, or should you just have a wine-directed dinner or a beer-directed dinner?
Well, I think that, when it comes to the idea of matching flavors, then the whole idea would be to, if I'm going to have a beer dinner, which we did, countless, numerous beer dinners in the past, I'd have everything from, maybe a beer battered here, and then, maybe a beer cheddar soup, and you could even have a beer ice cream. A beer ice cream, of course, would be, where you'd reduce the beer down and just get that essence of the beer, and then add that to basically it's just a custard. It's just a French custard, and then you freeze it. It's pretty simple to make ice cream. But that would be something where we just want to kind of really show off, the product of beer. I know that we did an event with our Olympic team over in Arcata with now I'm forgetting the name of I want to say Etna maybe, but it's just an amazing beer. It's a wonderful gentleman that owned it, and we did an event here, a beer tasting here. Then the next day we did the same beer tasting over there. It was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, again, it's all about matching foods, pairing them up, then coming up with a flavor balance that's going to work, and just practice, play around. I mean, that's where I think most of my, ideas that have been the most successful have certainly come from just trying things. Try that. Does it work? No, it didn't work this time. Oh, hey, I like that. That worked. So, you've got, but again, you don't know if you don't try, and, beer is one of those things that I think probably the beer batter would be the better way to go.
And if it doesn't work out, you can just go cry in your beer.
If it doesn't, then you can do the Hank Williams thing, and the next thing you know, you got a tear in your beer. So, but anyway, what I want to mention just quickly, I forgot to mention that spring mix that you got. It was a mixture of green leaf and red leaf. I thought that was kind of cool. Where'd you get that at?
Okay, so today I stopped by Winco, and at the end of where they usually have the butter lettuce, and they have the fresh growing ones, they had a spring mix style of 3 different lettuces growing out of the same little root ball.
Yeah, it looked like kind of like when you get the butter lettuce.
Yeah.
It looks like that.
So I'm excited to try that. I haven't tried it yet.
So we'll try that. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. But again, we always appreciate you tuning in to Cooking Like a Pro with Chef Cal and my wife, Mrs. Chef Christa. We will have a wonderful week, great weekend, and we look forward to talking to you next Wednesday here at KCNR 1460 AM, 96.5 FM.
Thank you so much for spending time with us. Until next time, we hope you'll be cooking up a storm in the kitchen. So we'll be with you again next week with food, flavor, and fun right here on Cooking Like a Pro podcast.